right, this is Thomas Keegan with LibertarianProgressive.com, blogtalkradio.com/election channel. We're going to conduct an interview here with the candidates who's running for Senate in the state of Hawaii as a Libertarian who's on the ballots. And I'm going to give him a call right now. His name is Michael Kokoski. He's expecting this call.
Oh, how's it going?
Hey, Michael. Yeah, it's going great. This is Thomas Keegan calling on behalf of LibertarianProgressive.com. Now, with your permission, we're live now, and we're going to publish this on our YouTube page, youtube.com/blastoffreshair, on our website, LibertarianProgressive.com. And right now, we're going to be live at blogtalkradio.com/election channel. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great, man.
All right, and I'm also, just as a backup, going to record this on my Google, if that's all right?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. Well, actually, I won't do that. I'll have to figure that one out later. But anyways, we're live. So I'm going to conduct the interview for about a half an hour. If some people decide to call in and might want to ask you questions, that's up to you if you have any time to do that. But let's just start with the interview here, because what we do is exclusively conduct interviews with independent and third-party candidates, unless it's some out of the status quo Republican or Democrat, but that's not usually the case. And we try to interview people who are pretty much the only third option in their state or their district. I saw that you had some competitors. They don't even have a website up, so I'm not really going to consider them like serious competition. You at least have a website going and are serious about your campaign, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. This is a second time I've run for the office.
Good. And so you gathered enough signatures. What was that like? I mean, what was the process for you to get on the ballot in the state of Hawaii?
It's really a pretty simple process. All you need is 25 signatures of verified signatures of registered voters, and they verify the address where they registered to vote, their the last four digits of their social security number, and their date of birth. So you're asking people to provide sensitive information, but I relate well with people, and I had no problem doing that.
Wow, so you have to ask them for their social security number as well. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah, social security number, the date of birth, address, all that.
Now, I'm looking on your website, which is michaelkokoski.com. Am I pronouncing that correct? Michael Kokoski or Kokoski.com, right?
Yeah, Kokoski. Yes, sir.
All right, so that's where people can find out about you. And even if you don't live in Hawaii, you're going to be affecting laws that affect the whole country, so they might consider, supporting you if they have any interest in independent third-party candidates. Now, have you been invited to debates? Like, I'm sure there's going to be a debate since you're running for Senate, right?
Well, I haven't been invited to any of the media debates, but I have been invited to the public broadcasting channels. They have candidates forums, and they also provide all the candidates an opportunity to go into the studio and to record a stump speech, to inform the voters as to what our platforms are and why on earth, people should vote for the individual candidate, over the other candidates in the field.
All right. So now, have there been debates? Do you know? I mean, is there a chance you will be on the debates with the other candidates? I mean, after all, you are on the ballots, right? And taxpayers are paying for you being on the ballots, and you have as much right to be on it as anyone else, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. And it depends. The national media, they have rules that are different than the private media. Your nonprofit, your public broadcasting channels. So, you're dealing with different entities there, different organizations, and different people, that have different agendas. I think that we can all agree that the mainstream media has a certain agenda. They want to maintain the status quo. And, I believe when you look at the word democracy itself, it's the compilation of two words. We've got the Greek, the demi, then we've got the Latin, the cracy. And when you look at it, what it means, democracy, is to divide in two for the absolute rule of one person. And I think that our politicians in the Democratic and the Republican parties today, they're very good at dividing the populace, right down the middle. And if you notice in our most recent presidential elections over the last, 3 or 4 or 5 terms, the races have been so close. It seems like we have the right hand and the left hand of the same thing. And I know when you vote Democrat and you vote Republican, I know what you can expect. They're going to lie to you, they're going to steal from you, and they're going to build more and more prisons to lock you and your children up. And that's basically all they're doing.
We do have, you can Wikipedia this or Google it, the highest prison population per capita and in actual numbers by far than any other. That's one of the categories we're number one in. And we have like double that amount. It's not just a little bit more. We have a whole lot more. Most of it is for nonviolent drug offenses in this war on drugs. And now let's go over your platform because, most candidates do list a platform or an issues list. It's really surprising to me when I see some candidates that don't issue a list. But you have on michaelkokoski.com your list of issues. You list foreign policy, Social Security, federal spending, environment, immigration, and U.S. military in Hawaii. Why don't you do a quick rundown on your issue platform, sir? We'd like to hear the issues. After all, that's what should be the number one thing, right?
Well, for me, I spent 20 years in federal prison as a victim of the drug war. I got in trouble for selling LSD at a Grateful Dead show when I was a kid a long time ago. And I know firsthand what's wrong with the criminal justice system. See, these drug laws, they subject people to trial by legislature. And that's why we have these very high incarceration rates. And that's why the federal government has a 98% conviction rate. Because here in the United States, under the English principles of law, there's 2 elements that must be proven to the satisfaction of a jury, and to the satisfaction of a jury only. One is called actus rea. That's the criminal act. The jury must first determine that a criminal act has been committed. And once the jury has determined that the defendant has committed a criminal act, the jury is then required to look into the mens rea, which is the criminal intent. Because only a jury can determine whether or not a crime has been committed, and if so, whether or not a person should be punished as a felonious criminal. And in order to do that, they have to look at why on earth someone would share or otherwise distribute these substances that have been banned, these controlled substances, the drugs, that they have been blacklisted. But the problem with the Uniform Controlled Substance Act of 1971 is that the Congress has determined for the jury that anyone who shares marijuana must be punished as a felonious criminal. And that's what's wrong with the drug war. And in all of these drug cases, no matter what the substance is, no matter what the drug that these people are caught sharing, the court converts all that down to grams of marijuana for sentencing. So each and every drug offender in prison or on probation today in the United States, each and every one of them are being incarcerated due to a weight of marijuana, regardless of what drug they've been caught with. And each and every one of them has been convicted by the Congress of Richard Nixon, because the Congress of Richard Nixon determined that anyone who shares pakalolo, that's what we call marijuana in Hawaii, we call it pakalolo, anyone who shares the pakalolo plant must be punished as a felonious criminal. And when that happens, you subject the people to trial by legislature. And that is what's wrong with our court system today. Another terrible act of the Congress was the Omnibus Crime Control Act of 1964. That's what made it illegal for a convicted felon to own or possess a firearm. Well, you think on the surface that sounds like a pretty good idea. But here's the problem with that. The police officers are forced to, they're required, they're duty bound to enforce that piece of legislation. And the police officer, he cannot tell the difference from a person who is a convicted felon and who isn't a convicted felon. You can't tell the difference walking down the street. You really can't look at a guy and say, oh, this one's a convicted felon and this one's not. So they train the police officers to treat everyone like a convicted felon. And that causes a lot of friction, especially on the mainland, where I see all the police shootings, and it's just terrible. And, the truth of the matter is they are bringing the people into bondage. If you look at it realistically, since the end of the Second World War, our government, the people within our government that we've elected to go into Congress, that we've put into the office of presidency, they have literally stolen all of our gold and all of our silver. There's no longer any gold or silver in common circulation. The money is backed up by nothing. They've got us all trading and spending evidence of debt, and they've taught us all to self-assess. Yeah.
We'll go into the monetary in a little bit. Let me just touch back up on the war on drugs and the criminal system real quick, because
okay.
It's because I think in the 1960s, I mean, people could literally buy LSD legally, and there were psychologists or psychiatrists that actually, I mean, you did nothing more than what a psychiatrist would have done, like in the 1960s before it was on the Controlled Substance Act. And in the trial, they probably didn't bring in the person that you sold it to ask if, it was consenting. And honestly, if I was on the jury, you've heard of jury nullification. I mean, if that's all that you truly did and it was a consenting transaction, then I would have exercised my right of jury nullification to, put not guilty on the prison population. Ever since Nixon started the war on drugs, it immediately goes up. I mean, it's just an exponential, like a plateau that goes upwards as far as the prison population goes. So, I mean, yeah, and about half the people that are in prison are in there. I mean, we're letting rapists and murderers go out before, people that are in there for nonviolent drug offenses. And think of how many families that have been split up. I mean, how was going to prison I know it was horrible, but, I mean, it probably affected your whole family, and not just that. I mean, your life, and took 12 years out of your time. I mean, I think, honestly, if there was justice, you would be compensated for the time that you were in there. But, I mean, what would you do about the war on drugs? What kind of legislation would you present? What kind of things would you, champion if you were elected to the Senate? And what kind of, and how would you convince the people in your state, the mainstream, to elect you on this issue?
Well, I'm of the mind that most of the people in America are happy with the way things are. They've got their job, they've got their credit, they've got their house payment, they've got their children, and they've got their lives that they lead continually day after day out. They watch the television, they read the news, they listen to the radio, and you know what? As long as they just don't want anybody to really rock the boat too much, I think that people have pretty much been brainwashed to just keep voting the way they vote. I'm really not sure exactly why it's like that.
Give you some hope, because if you look at Gallup polls, actually about 70, just anyone can look up Gallup polls, distrusting Congress has a record low approval rating. People think that there's corruption. If people had a choice, they'd say they would throw them all out. I mean, these are recent polls. I think the American people knows what's up, but there is a perception that people are, content. But I don't think that's actually true. I mean, I do hear what you're saying, though. I mean, I do hear what you're saying.
It's apathy. Apathy is the number one. Apathy is the number one enemy. If the American public were to wake up and understand what's going on, if they were to care enough to want to make a change, then yeah, we could make that change. And it would be something that we could all do together. it would be great for our entire country. It would be really good. I know that if I was elected to the United States Senate, I would call for a no confidence vote in the Uniform Controlled Substance Act. And I would stand up on the floor of the Senate, and I would make my case as to why this is a bill of attainder. See, in law, there's only two ways to really ever acquire property. You can purchase a piece of property from the rightful owner, pay for it, and lawfully obtain the property. Or you can use fraud, deceit, or trickery to cheat someone out of a piece of property. Or you can buy a piece of property from someone who doesn't even own it. And
Michael, are you still there? I think we kind of got disconnected there. Are you still there? I might need to give you a call back. It looks like we got lost of connection there. Michael, I might need to give you a call back. I can't hear you anymore if you're still there. All right, I'm going to dial him back here. Hey, Michael.
oh yes, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh.
For like about the last 30 seconds, we got disconnected, but you're back on. So we're all good.
Okay.
So yes, please continue. Oh, I think I X'd out the wrong one. Let me go ahead and give him a call back again, folks. All right. We unfortunately got disconnected there. All right,
Can you hear me now?
Yes. All right, so third time's the charm. All right, so Michael, please go ahead. Please continue what you were saying, what you would do if you were on the Senate floor and elected.
If I was on the Senate floor, I would call for a no confidence vote in the Uniform Controlled Substance Act, and I would make my case as to why it is bad legislation. It is a bill of attainder. It says in the Constitution, Article 1, Clause 9, it says that Congress shall make no ex post facto law or bill of attainder. Now, a bill of attainder is any piece of legislation that subjects a particular person or an easily identifiable group of people to punishment merely because legislators think them guilty of conduct deserving of punishment. Back in the 1960s, the hippies and the war protesters were really giving the Nixon administration a lot of trouble over the Vietnam War and all the things that they were doing. And, they looked at these people and they said they've got the right to assemble, they've got the right to redress their grievances, and they needed to find a way to shut these people up. And they noticed that all these people were smoking marijuana. So they just made it a law to share the marijuana. And they said, well, this is a way that we can lock them up, put them in prison, throw them away, take away their right to vote, and just treat them like a bunch of criminals. And what it's done is it's completely disenfranchised a large group of people from government. Most of the people who have been affected by the Uniform Controlled Substance Act, they feel as if they have no representation in government at all.
Michael, you're absolutely right. I just want to back you up on that on a second. Very recently, there were tapes released from the Nixon administration by one of his staff members that admitted exactly what you're saying. They admitted that they started the war on drugs to get after hippies and after racial minorities, the black population, and that's why they started the war on drugs. You can actually get footage of them admitting that, and so I mean that's
it is. I believe that it is not possible for a learned juror, for a judge, to sit on a federal bench for 5 or 10 years and hear these drug cases day in and day out and research the law and do the work. There is no way that a learned juror could sit on a federal bench for 5 years and not understand that they are subjecting the people to trial by legislature. Because like you said, all these people have testified before Congress about the effects of these drugs. All these people have testified before Congress about all these things. Congress is the one who made that determination. In drug cases, they never asked the jury to determine why the person shared the marijuana. And that's required. Only the jury can determine whether or not a crime has been committed, and if so, whether or not a person should be punished as a felonious criminal. And to do that, the jury must look into the question of mens rea, the criminal mind. What on earth was this person thinking when they did that? Why did they do it? What was their motive? And you know, friendship is not a crime. If you share marijuana in friendship, it cannot be said that you had a felonious evil heart to cheat the guy out of anything because it was done in friendship. You know, food and drink is something that human beings share. Naturally, throughout history, we share these things. And what else do we have that we can share intimately with our friends? Our food, our drink, our shelter, you know, maybe our covering. But that's really the most basic things in life. And when you think about it, the Congress does not have the authority to dictate under free men and women what we may or may not eat, drink, or otherwise consume. Dietary laws are an establishment of religion. You know, that has no business. The state has no business in dictating dietary laws to free people. It's just absolutely absurd and ridiculous. However,
as long as you're not
they got it all.
Then you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Well,
you must look at the heart.
Well, I was just going to say, let's get to some other issues real quick, too, on your platform here. Let's cover them all. You know, I'd like to cover them all here. And we can get back to that. I'll ask you at the end if you want to talk, you know, expand on anything else. I mean, you have foreign policy here, Social Security, federal spending, environment, immigration. And for people that are just tuning in, I mean, we're talking to Michael Kokoski, running for U.S. Senate on the ballot as a Libertarian for the state of Hawaii. And so we were just talking about the war on drugs. And by the way, Michael, how long have you lived in Hawaii?
I've been in Hawaii now for about 5 years, and I absolutely love it. I've got 2 businesses out here that I own and manage, and the island has really accepted me, and I just love it out here. There's nowhere else I'd rather live.
Well, let's combine 2 of these issues in one. I mean, you have one issue that says foreign policy and another issue that says U.S. military in Hawaii. Can you expand on those 2 a little bit, sir?
Oh, you know, I think our foreign policy that we have, with the trade agreements that they work out, I think is killing our infrastructure. It's killing I'm a tool and die maker, a machinist by trade. And, you know, when I come out of vocational school in 1986, you know, I could get a job anywhere in town. I could get a good, well-paying job. You know, if I wanted to take on my lunch break and go across the street and get a better job, it was so easy to do. From Dayton, Ohio, I was a tool and die maker. Plenty of work, you know, because we manufacture all kinds of things. But with the trade agreements and things that they've made, it's just killing our manufacturing base. It really has. Everything now is geared towards service industry. You know, I think that we need to offer tax breaks and tax incentives to corporations to where they want to come back to America, that they want to build their factories here and produce their products here. I believe that we could be competitive with anyone in the world if we set our heart to it. But we have to understand that the American people have been under attack. The people in our own government have been making war against our own people. You know, whether you look at the drug war or whether you look at some of these other wars that they have going on, I think that our foreign policy is misplaced. I think it's misguided, and I think that it's designed to bring us down lower and lower. It's like the carbon tax. My number one competitor, the incumbent senator here in Hawaii, Brian Schatz, he supports the carbon tax. He wants every man, and woman, and child in the United States to pay a tax to the United Nations based upon our use of our emissions of carbon. And, I just don't think that's appropriate.
And you know who probably benefits from this carbon tax the most are the big companies that produce the carbon. It probably is to drown out their competitors, It'll
just encourage more people to manufacture things in other places.
Yeah. So now you also...
And it'll bring us into bondage to a foreign government. We'll be paying a tax to a foreign government. We've been conquered.
Yeah, I can't imagine paying a tax to the UN. I mean, we're already taxed like 50% of our income to the U.S. federal government. Now, what did you say about the U.S. military in Hawaii? That's one of your platform issues as well on your website, michaelkokoski.com, MichaelKokoski.com.
Yes, from what I understand is the people in the Pentagon and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they have recommended that these troops levels be brought down in Hawaii. They have an interest in moving their base of operations forward toward Guam because things in the South Sea of China and things in Southeast Asia demand a quicker response. So I think there's so much tension, over Hong Kong and Taiwan and over North Korea and Japan and China. There's so much tension in that area of the world that the strategists have determined that, we need to reduce some of our troop levels here in Honolulu, and we need to move things forward more toward Guam. And I'm thinking that if this is what the strategists and experts have determined would be best for the defense of the United States, that, I would tend to agree with them, that perhaps that would be appropriate. And here in Hawaii, there's also other interest as well, as far as the land that these bases are occupying and the lease that the United States government has on them. And we have a huge homeless population here in Hawaii. And we have the Hawaiian homeless problems and issues. And then we have our homeless problems from the visitors from the mainland. I'm just thinking that through the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, that we would be able to use some of these abandoned bases to help alleviate some of the Hawaiian homelessness and some of our visitor homelessness problems that we have here in Hawaii. Because land is such a premium, especially on Oahu, that I think the best use is the best use. And I love the presence of the U.S. military. Everybody loves the presence of the U.S. military here in Hawaii. But if the strategists say that we should reduce these levels, then I would tend to give that a lot of weight and to say that's probably a good idea. And that's what made me base my decision. That I would be more compelled to listen to them. And of course, once I got into the United States Senate, I would have proper briefings where I get a better picture of the true state of things.
Yeah, well, that sounds really good. And so let's just want to go through your platform here. And so what about you have Social Security listed here and federal spending? Can you please elaborate on those two and inform our listeners what your positions and strategies regarding Social Security and also on a separate issue, federal spending, sir?
Well, when we look at the Social Security program, it's an insurance program. And what it does is it gives us something to rely on in retirement. We work, we pay into the Social Security fund, and when we retire, we hope that there's money left in the fund to where we can draw some type of an income to help us through our golden years, so the people do not end up in poverty later in life when they're too old to work. And if you look at the history of Social Security and how the legislature, the Congress, has raided the Social Security and taken money and surpluses out of those funds and used them for other purposes and not really put the money back in, I'm just thinking that the best way to save Social Security is to privatize it and let the sovereignty, let it be guaranteed by the United States. I believe that if we were to privatize Social Security, that the legislature would have a very hard time raiding those funds. that we would probably have more money, less waste, and it would be more secure.
Oh, that might be very well true. What about people? Would this be an opt-in and opt-out type system?
Well, I'm all for liberty and I'm all for choice. I know that Gary Johnson, he's our Libertarian candidate for president, and he says that for us Libertarians that we always fall down on the side of choice, and I believe that people have the right to choose what it is that they want to do with their money. So I would not want to forcibly require people to pay into Social Security if they chose not to. But, if you choose not to pay into it, what are you going to do in retirement? I think that it's a good program.
Well, I mean opt-in or opt-out. If you chose to invest it, privately, would you still be able to choose to have the government manage it if you wanted to do that? That's why I mean also.
I think that if we were to privatize Social Security, it would be best to go ahead and take the government all the way out of the administration of the fund and the process. And I think that the private entity that would be trusted to manage the fund would be able to handle that better. I think that if the people were to demand from their representatives that they have greater choices in how they invest their money to the fund, then of course Congress would be able to write legislation that the Social Security Fund would be duty bound and obligated to implement. So, say if people wanted to invest in gold, for example, and the Social Security Trust did not have that option, then I guess we have the courts. The courts would be open. People could file suit, and if the courts determine that yes, the people have a right to say on.
All right, folks, I think I'm going to have to give him a call back again here. It got disconnected again. All right, so just bear with me, everyone. I'm going to give him a call back. All right, so we're dialing. Going to be back with Michael Kokoski, U.S. Senate candidates.
Forgive me, I don't have very good phone reception out here where I'm located on the island right now.
That's all right, Michael. It only takes a second to call you back, and while you were on, you do sound very clear. So we're just talking about different reforms for Social Security. Now, of course, Gary Johnson, the Libertarian presidential candidate, who is the third choice here, he also says he's not running to be elected dictator. I mean, this is something that you would have to convince a majority. 60, at least 60 out of the 100 members of the Senate and the Congress to also implement. Now, some people, I think, in your system might benefit more. Some might be scared, like what if there's another crash or something like that. But I'm sure that, there's pros and cons to everything, but that's something that would have to legislatively be worked out and might be something that people are very interested in. Some people might just want to invest it in, very safe things and some, like gold and et cetera. So, yeah, go ahead and expand on that some more, and then we'll get to some of the other platform issues like federal spending.
Yeah, I'm thinking that right now today when we pay our money into the Social Security program, I guess that we're investing in bonds, as it would be my first idea. It's backed by the sovereignty of the United States government. I think that if we privatize Social Security, it would still have to be backed by the sovereignty of the United States government. We would have to secure that those funds will be available. But today, when you look at our currency, our currency is not backed by legal tender. There's no gold backing up our dollar today. The only reason that the American dollar has any value at all is because oil is traded in American dollars. And
you can thank Nixon for that again too, right? He started the drug war, and he also did, took the backing from gold off too.
That's very true. Now, personally, when I stand back and I look at history objectively, 70 years, to me, it goes back to the Second World War. I noticed that the United States was doing pretty good. The war in the 50s, we were doing very well. The 60s, we were doing very well. But when they took the gold and the silver out of the money, we began trading in this fiat currency, and the way that the bankers have manipulated our commerce today, our money is worth so much less than it was then. A dollar is an actual form of measurement. It's just like there's so many grains of fine gold make a dollar. It's just like a gram or an ounce or a carat. A dollar is it's a weight system. $20 equals 1 troy ounce of gold. Once upon a time, the people, we could take our money over there to the Treasury and put it on the table and say, here's your banknote. Now let me get the money that you've got put up for my safekeeping for me and my fellow countrymen on our national treasury. And they would examine that banknote to make sure it was authentic. They would destroy that banknote in your sight and bring and put in your hand a predetermined just weight of gold or silver coin. And when we had it like that, we the people had a way of directly checking on our government to see what on earth they're doing with our national treasure, our fortune, our money. We no longer have a way to check on the government. They print so much of this stuff, we don't know how much they print, and the value is.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say this ties into your issue of federal spending, doesn't it?
Yeah, federal spending's off the chart. If I had my way, I would abolish the office of the Department of Education. I'd completely do away with that, and this is why. I believe that people and communities and states that we the people have the people should be the ones to determine the curriculum for their children locally. Locally, I believe. I believe that when we have an all-powerful Department of Education, and they're the ones who determine all the curriculum for all the children in all the schools across the country, then we're subjecting our children to indoctrination, and that's all it is. I really don't think that it's healthy for us as a people to give that type of power to a Hillary Clinton or an Adolf Trump or whatever you want to call these people. I really don't think that they should have that type of power to indoctrinate all the children in the United States and to determine the curriculum for all of our children. I think that when I campaign, this is what I tell people, that if you elect me, this is what I'll do. I'll do my very best to keep the federal government out of your private life and away from your children, because I believe that all the matters concerning your private life and concerning your children should be determined by you, in your community where you live, not in Washington, D.C., because it would be too easy for them to abuse that. I believe that our children are being indoctrinated, and I really don't think that's healthy. I don't want these people teaching my children anything. I would rather let the people locally determine the curriculum. I think that we'd have a healthier, better education system. It's just more. It's just too. It's too abusive. The chance.
Point in that, and sorry to interrupt, but Gary Johnson actually gives a good spiel, I would say, about that. He says, like, when he was governor of New Mexico, they would send 15 cents to the federal government, and then the federal government would send 11 cents back, and then in order to get that 11 cents back, they would force this state to spend 15 cents, so they're actually losing out 10 cents, and that the Department of Education isn't one of these foundational departments we've had since the beginning of the country's formation. I mean, it was only started during, Jimmy Carter's administration, and you can look at our education results since then. I mean, they haven't, increased really. And if you do look at all these wonderful experiments in education around the states, I mean, I've seen special education projects like in Oregon and in Washington and lots of other places where they actually take kids out into the woods and they do all these other things, and there's these great charter schools and stuff. And honestly, if you take how much we spend per capita per kid, I mean, we could honestly, we spend about 20-something thousand, I think, or something like that per child. I mean, we could probably just give them the money and let them, 5 of them could team up and pay a teacher $100,000 a year, and you'd have your own private teacher or something. So there's lots of, we're definitely a lot of waste and lost potential there. I agree on that. And now, let's see here. You had some other issues like federal spending. I mean, if you want to expand some more on that, but I think another big one is environment too. So if you could finish up on the federal spending and then just kind of segue into the environment, sir.
Okay. If we look at the money that we're spending to fight this drug war, for example, in Chicago, they did a study on the police departments in Chicago. 95% of their resources are spent fighting this war on drugs that's unwinnable. 95% of their resources are spent on a drug war that's unwinnable. Well, if we get rid of that, then maybe they can spend their resources on something else, like trying to figure out who broke into so-and-so's house, or, who did this or that. I think that when people have a felonious, evil intent to harm or cheat or rob somebody, and they follow through with such a plan and they actually commit a crime, that, those people, they need to be punished as a criminal because they are criminals. That's what they're doing. But these victimless crimes, like in my case and so many others that I've read and studied and litigated, when I was in federal prison, that's all I did was litigate. I took everybody's case who would give it to me, and that's all I spent my time from the time I got in the morning until the time I went to sleep, was I would litigate. And just a huge waste of life and resources and time and money. If we were to bring an end to the drug war, that would be good. We wouldn't be wasting hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. If we were to take these jailers and send them home, maybe that would be good. We have to have a place for, people who rob banks, people who murder and kill and rape, and people who steal innocence from children. There's all kinds of foul things that people do under the sun. And, those things have to be addressed. They have to be corrected. They have to be punished in some way, so that we can have an ordered society. But these victimless crimes, the drug laws have to fail. It's bad legislation, and in time they will fail, just like slavery failed. Sooner or later it'll go. If we got rid of the drug war, that would really be good.
Yeah, funny you said the slavery. If we ended the drug war and just released the people that were nonviolent criminals, meaning they didn't harm anyone else, you would actually free more people than the Emancipation Proclamation during slavery. Do you know
that? We would, and what about all these homeless people? They've been told ever since they were children that they should be punished because they're sharing these drugs. They've been told ever since they were little kids that they're criminals, that they should be punished. They have no place in society. This stuff affects some people worse than it does others. I think that if we were to end the drug war and we could actually reclaim these people, an awful lot of people, we could reclaim them to where they could be productive members of society, to where they could have a life and be able to fit in again, to where, people would feel that, I have representation in my government, that I'm proud to be an American. But all these people have been labeled this and labeled that, and they've been mislabeled. I think there's too much mislabeling.
We were doing fine before the war on drugs, which only started in the Nixon administration. In fact, some could argue, as far as that goes, we were doing better. I would vote on you just for that alone. You could, give you a chance for 6 years, and if people really like the status quo, they're more than welcome always to go back to it later. And now, can you expand on the environment a little bit, because that's a hot topic.
Let's hit on the IRS, and I go right into the IRS is Congress shall make no law that's unjust, unfair, ununiform. The tax code is all the above. It's a big, complicated mess. You could take it'd take 24 Philadelphia lawyers 10 years to read it and figure out what it is. It's so complex, and we spend all of our time gathering these records and crunching these numbers and all this stuff for what? I don't get it. See, here's the truth. In commerce, you're either a creditor or a debtor. And in life, you're either a slave or you're free. And free men are not taxed. Taxation is theft. Now, we have men that have money. We have women that have money. We have all these corporations that have money. And, as Americans, we did great things without any income tax. We unified our whole country. We fought the Civil War. We fought the First World War. We built railroads and bridges and roads and all these things without any federal income tax. I think that the IRS should be abolished. I think that people should be asked to give to the government. I think that we can find a way to fund our government without subjecting people to all this to the IRS code, because we have to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah,
so he wants a flat tax.
Yeah, he said he would support a national sales tax. Now, he said if getting rid of the income tax doesn't create millions of jobs, which I think it would.
Oh my God.
He doesn't know what would. I mean, I know I have a small business, and if you got rid of the IRS, that would make me very happy there, Michael. But I do think, we have to have some funding. I mean, a national sales tax, is that something, or do you not even want that?
I really wouldn't go for the national sales tax. But, this is the truth of the matter and the facts. We've been paying an income tax for so long, you can't just stop doing that.
Michael, I think I'm going to need to give you a call back here. Sorry, folks, I had some phone difficulties. Going to give him a call back. We're talking to Michael Kokoski, who is a U.S. Senate candidate on the ballot, a Libertarian in the state of Hawaii, and he's joining us today.
I guess we got cut off again.
Yeah, Michael, we got you back here, and now I just want to announce one time, if people are interested in calling in, it is late at night. It's 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but there is a guest call-in number, 602-753-1596. If you want to call in, we'll see if we can get 1 or 2 calls here. But you were talking about the IRS, and please continue with that, and then you're going to cover on the environment, what you would do as U.S. Senator if you were elected. If Hawaii gave you a chance for 6 years to be, a third-party candidate elected to break that status quo, and Michael goes to Washington, what would you do regarding the IRS and the environment?
Well, regarding the IRS is, we've created, when the IRS tax code come out, it was 12 pages total. Okay? A lot of people really didn't even take it seriously. Some people participated in it, and then, they begin to enforce it more and more, and now we're all caught in this thing. And it's a huge burden for the people. And we have a huge federal government with all these employees that we've hired to enslave us, basically, and to indoctrinate our children. And I think that what we can do is we can eliminate some of these agencies altogether. I think that's going to save us a lot of money. That's going to cut down on our federal budget quite a bit. And I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to phase out the income tax. We're going to have to phase it out. It's not something that it's like dieting. If I'm 150 pounds overweight, I can't just stop eating completely or I'll die. You have to phase it out. This is something that took us a while to get to this place, It's going to take us a while to get out of it. But we have to have a real plan to get out of the tax system, and we've got to have a real plan to fund the government that we need. And as far as the environment goes, okay, it's very important to protect our water. It's very important to protect our air. It really, really is. But now when you look at carbon emissions, okay, volcanism, which is your volcanoes, volcanoes on Earth release more carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide than all the gasoline engines in the world and all the smokestacks in the world put together. Much more. So to say that the gasoline engine and the burning of so-called fossil fuels is responsible for climate change, I believe is incorrect. I just don't buy that. I don't believe it. That doesn't mean that we should just, burn all the coal that we can. That doesn't mean that we should pollute the environment as much as possible. I do believe that we do need to enforce environmental controls. We do need to protect our water. We do need to protect our air, our soil. We really do. We have to look at the largest contributors to the pollution that we have today. And when we look at those, we're gonna find our petrochemical companies. We're going to find the DuPonts of the world and the Monsantos of the world that continually produce all these harmful chemicals that we use industrially and use on a daily basis. So, that's something else that's going to take some time to really get a handle on. And once we remove the indoctrination, and once we remove all the propaganda that we've been taught, somewhere hidden in the soup of environmental protection is something called truth. And there's got to be something reasonable that we can do. It would be nice to be able to paint your car. I know out here in Hawaii, I'd love to find a car wash that I could take my car to and take the little wand and wash my car. But the EPA is so strict out here that, we really don't have those. And there's got to be a reasonable, responsible way to do things, and I believe that there is reasonable and responsible ways to do things, and I do believe that we need an environmental protection agency. It just needs to be something that's reasonable, and hopefully we'll find it. But as far as the carbon tax goes, I don't buy it. That's just a way to subject the people to paying tax to a foreign government. That's the way to bring us into the new world order that we've all heard about for so long.
All right. Well, I hear you on that. And now you did have one other issue on your website, and then if you don't mind, Michael, I'd like to go down a bullet list of a couple issues that I'd just like to get a quick answer on, if that's cool. You had immigration, so please tell us about your stance on immigration at this point. Well,
once we bring an end to the drug war, that right there is going to stop a lot of illegal immigration, because it will no longer be profitable for these people to smuggle drugs on their backs across the river and into our country. Because there'll be once we make drugs legal, the black market will go away. The consumer will not need to rely on black market to receive the things that they want. It's like the way prescription drugs are done today. I had a burn on my leg, and I wanted silver oxide to put on my burn. That's what any competent physician would prescribe. I go to the drugstore to get some and can't get it without a prescription. Why is that? I don't get it. I believe that we should be able to go to our pharmacist and talk to our pharmacist, and he should be able to sell us anything on his counter that he feels comfortable to sell us with clean hands. I believe that right there would do a whole lot of good for our healthcare system if we could just simply go buy the drugs that we need over the counter. I think that would help.
There's people that are moving from their state to Colorado because Colorado legalized marijuana because their kids are suffering from multiple sclerosis and other ailments, and because that's one of the few states that has it legal. They have to get up, get a whole new job, move from their home, move to a whole new state, just because there's only a handful of states that have actually legalized it, just so that their daughter or son can get the help that they need. And it's a real shame that they have to go through all that effort just to have their kids from stopping having seizures and stuff like that, you know?
It's like that for everyone who has any type of an ailment or illness. I mean, if your doctor writes you a 30-day prescription, it guarantees you're going to be back in his office 30 days later so he can write you another one. And, you know, if the medication is working for you and you're a reasonably confident person, you know, I think that you should be able to work with the druggist who is also has some real good experience and a lot of education behind and experience behind him. I believe that you should be able to work with your local druggist and to continue to receive those things. Why should you have to go pay the doctor? So you know he's going to give you a prescription for the same thing. And what's the point? You know, I just don't get it. All it does is it just inflates all of our cost of living. You know, that's just one thing that we shouldn't be required to do.
Well, it sounds like a racket. It reminds me a lot about...
It's a racket. That's all it is.
Hairdressers that have to take 500-hour courses and pay hundreds of dollars just to become a hairdresser. You know, I mean, it sounds real familiar to that. Well, let me, if you don't mind, Michael, if I could ask you, you know, just some line item questions here and just give me a quick response on some of these issues here, if that's cool. All right, so we covered some of them already in there, but election reform. You know, what are some things you think we could do to reform our election system?
Well, you know, from what I understand, there's a large movement, you know, in America today to get the money out of politics. I mean, my leading competitor, I think he raised $2 or $3 million last month. You know, and people are the Hawaiian Electric Company. You know, they donate lots of money to his campaign, and you know he's going to repay that. You know, in some way. You know, in some type of legislation or whatever. You know, I just think that if it was possible to remove the money from politics, you know, to where we could fund these campaigns without the lobbyists giving the millions of dollars. You know, like Bill Clinton, every time he speaks, he receives so many hundreds of thousands of dollars for speaking engagements. And they say that, I've heard on the radio that if Hillary, God forbid, were to be elected, that, you know, the Clintons could stand to gain $100 million during her term. Because Bill would speak and get the money, and Hillary would sign the legislation. You know, that's what I've heard on other radio stations. It's just there's too much money.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, I didn't know that till I researched it a little bit. They're worth about $300 million, and they never owned a business. I mean, they've only done public service. So, I mean, to own that much money and to be, you know, public servants sounds a little awkward. But so yeah, I mean, definitely, and you know, I think we need more competition in our politics too. I mean, we have you know, we promote people like say competition's good in every other aspect. Why not in our politics? So what about small and mid-sized businesses? I mean, supposedly that's the heartbeat of America, but there's been a decline over the last couple of decades of new startups and things like that. How important do you think small and mid-sized businesses are, and would you try to help, you know, create a better environment for small and mid-sized businesses?
Well, you know, everybody needs representation in government. You know, we really do. That's why I would like to remove the federal government as much as possible from our life. You know, I think that we'd do much better at going to the state level. You know, I think that the people who represent the people, elected officials who represent their constituents here in the United States, in the counties and in the districts all over our nation, you know, they should have an open door policy, and to where people who own and manage small businesses would be able to come and voice their concerns. You know, hey, you know, this law right here is giving me problems. I would like to open up a laundromat in Capitol A, for example, but they say the sewer system cannot handle that. So I'm thinking, well, here's a city that's growing. There's not a laundromat anywhere in town, and that would be a really good business. You know, that's something that I would like to be able to take to my local representative and see if he can help me with. I think that's what we need to do. And I think that's what the Libertarian movement's all about, is to downsize the federal government and to try our best to get the federal government out of our life. I think that we should be able to work through the local and state governments, should be able to help people locally. I don't really think
those are a little bit bloated, but yeah.
Oh God! Out here in Hawaii, it's horrible and terrible. The money the stolen and the fraud and the gifts and all that stuff. It's just off the chain. Like the rail system that they put out here, so many people have embezzled so much money behind that. And it's just, and the federal government should be there to investigate that. If we're going to have a federal government, let them do that. They can investigate claims of fraud and embezzlement and breaches of trust, and that's what I would envision the federal government, if it has a place on earth, it would be to keep the game clean.
That's
to
what you would
do that.
Senator, if someone brought up issues like that, as senator. So would you try to meet with your constituents a lot? Would you have an open door policy? So I mean, that's what you could do as senator, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'd have an open door policy, and as senator, I'd also have offices, here in Hawaii, around the state, and I would maintain an open door policy there as well. That way people could voice their concerns, their needs, or and we could try and find solutions to help people. Especially when it comes to fraud and graft. That's something that we really don't need. If we're entrusted to administer all types of different programs, all types of different trusts, and when that trust is broken, and when those programs are mismanaged and there's embezzlement and fraud, those people need to go to prison. They need to be locked up. When people do those things to misuse the trust of their office, they need to be brought up on formal charges. They should have to answer to that. But what I see today is so many people in government are above the law.
You would have a bully pulpit. I mean, it would be good to have someone there that could bring light and attention to specific individual issues that people are, having. And so what about next? Let's go into the government transparency, accountability, as well as NSA spying. The balance between security versus privacy. You have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'm all for privacy. I do not believe that the federal government needs to spy on us. But here's another way to look at it. If we got rid of the drug war and we got rid of
All right, folks. Looks like we got disconnected again. We're giving a call back again. We're talking with Michael Kokoski, who is a...
Oh, there I am.
Yep, you're back here. All right. And, yeah, so you were talking about balance between privacy and security. Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, in Hawaii, the two most important things are hospitality and security. And if we were to get rid of the IRS and the DEA, for example, we just snap our fingers, the drug war's over, and there's no more IRS. Well, the people really would have no reason to fear their government. Really. I mean, that would really go a long way to protecting our privacy, because they would have no reason to hunt us.
Yeah, like I said, just on the drug war alone, I think it'd be worth your vote. That would change the entire world, or at least, start to. That would get the ball rolling. That would break the status quo. No matter what else you think on any other issues, this has been lingering on for decades, and it has impacted millions of people. We could have a drug war memorial. There's a war memorial in Washington, D.C. A drug war memorial would have to be 10 times bigger than that because it's affected that many more people. So what about okay, and let's see. Let me just ask you some, hot topics, just real quick about what you think about, like women's issues, the right. What do you think the government's role is in like issue like abortion?
Well, personally, I'm against abortion. I believe that life is very, very precious. I do not believe that it's appropriate to use abortion as a form of birth control. But I also understand that, this is not my choice to make. So I'm thinking that abortion, even though it is a horrible, terrible, bad thing, I believe it's misused an awful lot today. I've read a subject, a thing in the paper that said that abortion was the number one cause of death in America. So if that's going to be the reality, if abortion kills more Americans than anything else, then I think as a people we should really look at that. Does that mean that abortion should be illegal? Does that mean that women should not have the right to choose whether to carry a child or not? That's not it's not my place to make that choice for other people. And I would be very reluctant to try and make those choices for people. I think that those are choices that people have to make. But personally, I'm a pro-life guy all the way. I believe that life is very precious, and that we should do everything in our power to support life and protect it. That's how I feel personally. But I also look at this as, it's not my place to make these choices for other people.
Yeah,
so it's really hard to balance that.
It is, and so it's probably, like what you're saying, it's not the role of the government, but there could be other ways to, make more of an impact through education and things like that, perhaps. Here's something that really blew my mind a while back, is I heard on the radio, and this has been 20 years ago, a medical student. He sued the licensing agency for doctors. And in order for him to get his medical license to practice medicine in the United States, he had to perform one simple surgical procedure, and it was required for him to perform an abortion. And he refused to do that on religious grounds. He said that, I think that would be wrong for me to do. And he sued the medical association, saying that there must be some other type of procedure that he could be required to perform. And, he lost his lawsuit. So, I'm thinking that perhaps it would be inappropriate to require doctors to perform those. Yeah, so that's
I don't know.
Reasonable. Like, I agree with you there, actually. That sounds reasonable to prevent something like that. And maybe, no taxpayer dollars going to such procedures. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough question, but I mean, it's something that everyone's going to be asked. So just want to get your.
It makes us callous. It makes us callous to it makes the people callous. And I've also seen on the internet, they've interviewed people that they're pro-life or pro-choice, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm pro-choice," then they show them the abortion video. And they say, "Well, yeah, I'm not for that." So, I mean, I don't know. I've never viewed the abortion video, so, I'm not exactly sure what it's all about. All I know is from what I've heard that it's especially at late-term abortions. I mean, there's got to be, in my opinion, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way.
Most places, unless if it's the life of the mother or some other extraordinary situations, actually do prevent late-term abortions. But yeah, I agree. I don't think it should be a matter of the state per se, but I do think that we should try to limit it as much as possible at this point, at least. And now let's just I'll just ask this question here, just to get a feel of like some of your thoughts here. Who's some of your favorite past or present people, whether they've been elected or not? Some people that might have been an influence on you and your thinking.
Well, I like John F. Kennedy. Of course, I think he was our last great American president. I believe that he understood what was going on, and that they took his life before he could fully expose exactly what's happening. I think that he would be my favorite president.
Yeah, and he wrote a great book, Profiles in Courage, and that makes me think of another question. What about whistleblowers? Do you think it could make it easier for people in government who are whistleblowers, not to have to do what Edward Snowden did, an actually thing in recent Gallup polls? I mean, it seems like it's so hard if someone knows there's corruption going on, they're scared to speak out because they'll be punished or something like that. I mean, there should be a system that makes it easier for someone who is on the right side and legitimately cares about the issue, and all they want to do is speak out and bring light and let someone know, hey, I think something's wrong here.
Yeah, there's too many secrets within the administration of our government. And, I really don't think that the people have very much control over this government anymore. They've been leading us into to slavery is where all this goes, to the ever-increasing taxes and the ever-increasing penalties for all these different things that they tell us that we shouldn't do. So, I do believe that there is a sinister group of people within our government that is certainly leading it astray. I think that these people are criminals, that they should be brought to justice. I believe that we should be a free people and a free nation. I think that Americana is very important to me. I really love this country. I really do. I love the country of the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s. I love the America of the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. And I love the America of the 90s and all the way up to today. But the people have been led astray. Our family values have been under great attack, and our institutions of marriage. Oh, okay. Who'd you give it to? So I don't know. It's a horrible mess. But if you look at the cause of who's doing this to our country, I think I see clearly who's doing this to us. And it's something that really hasn't been talked about very much in the media or on the late night talk shows. But I believe I know exactly what happened. I know exactly who's doing this to us. And that's another reason I'm running for United States Senate, is so that, I can try and help expose this.
Okay, now, since you mentioned it, I mean, you want to elaborate on that? Is that, like, something to do with the Jekyll Island thing or something else? Or?
Well, it is. If you look into the Second World War, back in 1945, the United States, when Berlin fell to the Allies at that time, we completely destroyed Hitler's state government. We completely destroyed his military, and we brought an end to the Second World War. However, at that time, Adolf Hitler had over 250,000 intelligence agents in the field worldwide. He had created the largest global intelligence apparatus in the history of mankind. And it's well documented that his intelligence community, his intelligence apparatus, remained intact and continued to function throughout the entire Cold War era. Then at the end of the Second World War, when Japan surrendered to the Allies, everyone celebrated the end of the war. And during that time of great celebration, the United States government, they quietly recalled all their own intelligence officers, and they dismissed them on the GI Bill. Then they abolished the OSS, the Office of Selective Services, and they formed a brand new thing called the CIA. Well, I believe that was Hitler's plan all along. And what they did was they switched hats. And I honestly believe that the United States, Great Britain, and France, we won the battle, but I'm afraid we lost the war. At the end of the Second World War, when the United States and Russia were competing for access to all of the German scientists and programs that Hitler had scattered about all over the world, they also picked up a lot of Nazi intelligence agents, and I believe that the CIA was populated with Nazi intelligence agents right at the end of the war, and that they were permitted to use that agency as a vehicle to capture the executive branch of government in 1946. I believe they've kept us in a perpetual state of war ever since, so as to increase the office of powers of the office of presidency, which they have controlled. And I believe that we've been under Nazi occupation ever since. And that they've taken every one of these Nazi black op programs that they could find in the field worldwide, and they brought them home to us in the United States, and home to the people of Russia, and home to the people of England, and home to the people of France, and they've caused those programs to flourish and advance. And that they've been working these eugenic programs all over the globe ever since. So if you want to know the truth, I believe that Hitler was cloned and that he won the Second World War. And that explains to me why things are so screwed up.
Well, there definitely has been undocumented evidence that, there has been experiments done on people with, the government, the CIA. The CIA has actually given people without their will LSD and stuff like that. But now we only have a couple minutes left here, and so you would think they would be charged for something like that. But and just kind of wrapping up here, Michael, let's give a pitch to because Hawaii, is probably known as more of a liberal state, and that doesn't mean that you couldn't win. Personally, I would just say something like, the things you might fear about you'd have to pass through Congress. And now, compared to presidential politics, the Congress is a lot less divisive to unify on, and there's a lot of good things that you're saying. I definitely think you would break up the status quo, and if you don't like you after 6 years, they can vote you out. 6 years of you, I think, would be better than the status quo. And just ending the drug war alone would make a big impact. So do you see the glass as half full, per se? And what would be your pitch to, people, on the so-called, and I hate saying things left and right, because nowadays it's not so much like that anymore. There's some issues people kind of agree on and are in the middle. But what would be your pitch to the people that are independent, moderate, on the left? I want to hear your pitch to people on the left. And also, if you think the glass is half full going into the future.
Well, I think the glass is half full. I think that people are waking up to the fact that liberty is very important. And as far as my sales pitch to the American people, that's real easy. When you vote Democrat and you vote Republican, you know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get people who's going to lie to you, they're going to steal from you, and they're going to build prisons to lock you and your children.
All right, folks, we got disconnected again. I'm going to give him a call back here. We're just wrapping up on his final statements. Let's give Michael a call back, let him finish up here. He's running for senator in Hawaii as Libertarian. He's on the ballot. He's running against a Republican and Democrat. You can check out his website, michaelkokoski.com.
Back again?
Yep. Hey, Michael?
Sure.
All right. So we're just wrapping up in the last couple of minutes, but you're going to give your final pitch here to our audience, to the general electorates here. All right. Well, if there was a time to not, it would be now, since we're at the end of the interview. We've covered most of the topics here, and I'm going to give him a call back again. Looks like there's a bad phone connection. Now, when he's on, you can hear him pretty clearly. But this is a long-distance call to Hawaii.
Okay, I guess, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Michael. All right, so, we're almost done anyways. We've had a good interview. but we just want to hear your last pitch to the general electorate, the wide audience here.
Well, the wide audience, this is all I can tell you. When you vote Libertarian, you get people who care about your liberty, people who care about your freedom, and people who care about your privacy. People who care about your right to make choices concerning your own private life and the lives of your children. When you vote Libertarian, you get people who genuinely care about your liberty and freedom. And I don't think you're going to get that with the Republican Party, and you're not going to get that with the Democratic Party either. You're going to get people who are going to sell you on a lot of stuff that they think is going to be free. We've got a huge class of people that live on welfare merely because they think it's an entitlement, something that they can sign up for a free ride. With the Libertarians, you're not going to get that. You're going to get people who are going to do their best to fight for you. You have to fight for your liberty, your right to live and be free, and the right to make choices concerning your private life and the life of your children. I think that's what's important, because we have the right to eat, drink, and otherwise consume anything on earth that's found within the bounty of nature that's intended for human consumption. I think those are natural rights. You're going to get people who care about your constitutional rights to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. You're going to get people who care about your liberty. So I think that's what's really important. When you vote Libertarian, it's never a wasted vote, because you're saying that liberty is important, that freedom is important, that your right to make your own decisions is important, and that your right to privacy is important. These are the most important things. And I think that when you vote Libertarian, you're going to get people who care about your liberty, and that's why you should vote Libertarian.
Yeah, and I think it would do us good to have at least one Libertarian. It's not like, we're taking over the entire Congress or the Senate, wouldn't it be a good balanced, proportionate representation to at least have one person in there who is going to fight for some of these causes? It's not a big risk. You're not running for president. You're running for a very important office, the Senate. And, good to talk to you today, Michael. Do you have any final closing words before we end tonight's interview? And we appreciate your time so much for being open and discussing this in the open arena here.
Thank you very much for calling on me and giving me this opportunity. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. Please forgive me that my internet connection and my phone connection is not very good where I'm located on the island right now. But, what's important to people is liberty. And I think that in closing, what's important for the people to realize is they've got 2.5 million people locked up in cages. And, over half of these people, I've heard 75% of these people are in there due to a plant, the marijuana plant. And no matter what drug they got caught with, or sharing, or buying, or selling, or manufacturing, or whatever, they're going to convert it to grams of marijuana. Each and every one of those people are in prison due to a plant. Now, I don't know if you can visualize what 2.5 million people look like, but that's twice as many people who live in Hawaii. So that's how many people that they've got locked up over this nonsense. And the IRS code, that's something that we can do without. We can find a better way to fund the United States government. Matter of fact, one of the best ways to fund it is to go ahead and cut out a lot of these programs that we don't need. They've got programs in the United States that do, the only reason they exist is to lock people up. We need to do something with the IRS. We need to get rid of it. We really do. We need to clean the house up there is what we need to do. And if you put me in office, I'd do things like impeach federal judges off the bench. I would really enjoy doing that. And I'll make sure that you've got a right to a writ of habeas corpus. Because right now, if you're a federal or state prisoner and you don't file an appeal within 1 year, well, you know what? You can never file one. And even if you can prove that you're in there illegally and that you're entitled to immediate release, they don't even have the power to hear the petition because of a piece of legislation that Bill Clinton signed. the Anti-Effective Terrorism and Death Penalty Act of 1996. That needs to be abolished. It really does. The Omnibus Crime Control Act of 1964 needs to be abolished. It really does. You know, either we've got the right to bear arms or we don't. Now, when you single out a group of people like convicted felons and you say, well, these people do not have the right to bear arms, it sounds like a good idea, but the police, they don't know how to enforce that. They can't tell the difference between a convicted felon and someone who isn't. And look at all the friction that causes, you know, in our communities with police officers, you know. And it's not the police officers, it's not their fault. It's the legislation. We need to abolish a lot of the legislation that's been written. You know, that stuff's nothing but witchcraft and sorcery. It's illegal writing, and it needs to be abolished.
All right. Yeah, there should be more sunset laws, I think. Well, Michael, good to talk to you today. Going to end the interview. I'll send you an email with a link to these so you can, check them out later. But I hope you have a pleasant night, and good luck to you in your campaign. And, so hopefully get majority of votes there. Appreciate your time again.
God bless you, and thank you, and have a good day. And aloha kia kua.
Thank you so much.
That means,
you too.
Go with God. Thank you. Aloha.
All right. Yeah. Godspeed. Thank you so much. Take care. All right, folks. That is the interview. We'll have plenty more here, so check out blogtalkradio.com/election channel. I think I've mentioned my website a couple of times in here, libertarianprogressive.com. Plus, we're having a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to hear more independent and third-party candidate interviews, people who are on the ballot who deserve the time that the media aren't covering as much. I mean, if the media covered these people, I wouldn't be here, and I hope that happens someday soon. So, again, check out Michael's website. It's michaelkokoski.com, michaelkokoski.com. And if you don't even live in Hawaii, I think he deserves some support because, after all, he's running for the U.S. Senate. And so until next time, thanks for listening.